Okay, so a quick video going over all the characters in the Summer Survival Rhapsody Side B or Side 13 event, going over all the characters and what they do, and then at the end of the video, we're going to have a bit of pretty much a surefire strategy to win almost every stage, kind of, depending on what difficulty and kind of what stage you're doing, but mostly a really good strategy. And we're going to start off with all the level 3 characters, or the kind of utility characters, starting off with Pardafellas. This is your money-making unit. It makes you money. You want as many of them on the field as you can. Pretty much one row or one column. One of the down strips. I don't know if that's a column or a row. I'm an idiot. But one of those of just Pardafellas usually is enough coins, but 2 is a safe one. You can go for 2, and now you'll have more than enough money to do everything. But very simple unit, just makes you money. Kevin, on the other hand, you put him down on the field and he freezes everything for a short period of time. It's a very simple strategy. Just place him down anywhere and he'll freeze everything. Very simple. Calpus is a very good unit. He costs like 90, I believe, or the cost doesn't really matter. But he costs something, and you put him down and he explodes in a 3x3 square, dealing damage. And obviously, if you have one of his items, he leaves down essentially a burning field on the floor, and they take ticking damage. Very good unit for a clutch play if some enemies get past, but yes, he just explodes in a 3x3. Klein is a utility unit dependent on what zone you are in. If your zone has water in it, which some of the endgame zones do in terms of the ultimate challenge, you do need to bring a Klein. She builds bridges, so you can actually place units on the lines that have water only in them, so you can actually deal with the enemies coming down that line. Cosma is a bit of a bad unit per se, not terrible, but not great either. He's kind of like a clutch single target quantum destroying bomb. He just pretty much instant kills an enemy that is just there when the bomb is. It's not really that useful for a 1x1 for the amount of that he costs, but it's there if you so choose. And the last unit is much like Klein. Aponia is a specific unit that you want to take for specific challenges. If your challenge has these oozing puddles of purpleness, you need an Aponia there to deal with them. Essentially, it purifies that layer so you can actually place a unit there, as well as it prevents enemies from teleporting to this one pool. I don't quite understand it, but enemies can like spawn there or teleport to there, and you do want to purify all of them at all times. On top of that, Aponia also has like some sort of stun effect that you can see when an enemy passes through the lightning part of her thing. They get stunned for a short duration. It's quite helpful as well. Now moving on to the actual good units, or the attack units, whatever you want to call them, active units. Starting off with Fu Hua, this is your standard unit. It shoots down one whole row no matter where you place her. Place her at the end, far left, place her at the far right. She shoots down one whole row and she does a standard amount of damage. She's very good general unit. Sakura, on the other hand, she shoots up to 5 squares in front of her and her attacks slow down enemies. This is actually really good if you're overrun by enemies and you need to slow them down. You can put her behind a Su, and then you have a lot of general kind of slowing down of enemies, and you can then build up your arsenal behind them. Mobius is a rather interesting unit, and it's super helpful if you want to get a lot of AoE in. She shoots essentially in a whole column about 4 squares in front of her, and she hits all enemies within those 4 squares. It's very good if you have some good, like a lot of AoE happening, but also if you have the armored units with a shield in front of them, she does direct damage to them, so you don't actually have to go through the shield, which is extremely useful as well. Su is your tank unit. You put him there, he's got a lot of HP, but he can also knock the enemies back 1 square to even further postpone their arrival. Really good if you just need to, again, hold the enemies back a few times, so you can build up your arsenal behind Su. Elf Alicia is a rather interesting one. She can shoot 1 projectile, but also 3 projectiles. The demo doesn't do a great job presenting it, but essentially, when you actually place her down in the game, she'll shoot 3 projectiles all the time, not 1. It's weird that it does 1, but whatever. She shoots 3 projectiles. Overly kind of okay unit. The only problem with her is that she costs like 60, but has like a 50-second deployment cooldown, which is quite large. So you'll rarely get to use her, if I'm completely honest. Griseo is a rather useful unit sometimes. She buffs all the characters in that row. So you place her in the center row, far left, and everyone in that row with her is buffed and essentially does more damage. Attack speed is increased, and the attack units shoot an extra projectile, which is rather useful once you get into other characters further down the line. Vilvi is an odd unit, not a personal favorite of mine. Essentially, when you place her down on the field, depending on where you place her, depends on what kind of character you'll get. If you place her on the far left of the field, you have a chance to get Pardafelis, Fu Hua, Alicia, and Elf Alicia, I believe. If you place her somewhere in the middle of the field, you have a chance to get Sakura, Sue, and Mobius. And if you place her on the very far right of the field, you have a chance to get Calpus, Sue, and Kevin. Now, I'm not a fan of this level of RNG in my runs, so I don't generally use her, but if you do like using her, there are benefits. She is a low cost of 60 with only an 8-second deployment cooldown, so if you just need to get units out very, very quickly, then she's really good. Eden, a bit of a weird unit. Basic character, she shoots 3 squares or so in front of her, and she costs 0, but she also doesn't deal that much damage, so you know, for a free unit, for a 0 cost unit, really good if you just need to delay some enemies or deal some really quick damage. By all means, use her. But generally speaking, she doesn't do a lot, so there's no real reason to have her. And lastly, Alicia, the last character you'll get, is probably the strongest unit in the game in terms of a raw numbers perspective. And essentially, as she attacks even faster, essentially turning into this rapid fire unit. And this is the unit that I mentioned that Griseo is really good at, because every attack does an extra attack, and thus makes it even better. And essentially, she attacks faster, and once she reaches her peak of attack speed, then she'll have to go into a 1-second crystallized state to cool down, essentially, and then she'll start attacking again. A very good unit, pretty much the highest damage unit in the game, essentially the unit that you also want to invest in, but, you know, 110 deployment cost with a 12-second cooldown. You know, if you have the money, go for it. If you don't do it. And that's fundamentally how all the units in the game work. Now, let's jump into a quick kind of general run that I recommend and how I recommend players play the game, or if you're looking specifically just to get through the event, what are some good ways to get a run done? But obviously, play however the hell you want. Now, for our ultimate challenge, for our demonstration, we're going to go into Ultimate Challenge 12. This is in the Ultimate Challenge menu, and we have to use Pardafelis Klein Aponia because the area decides that. For my actual units, though, I'm using Fu Hua and Alicia for damage, Kevin and Sue for support. Kevin and Sue are there just to kind of prolong the enemies. Let's get into a run, and hopefully this time it's gonna go good. Let's start off with a Pardafelis and build some bridges on the third tile. The third tile here, so we can place our damage units here and actually, you know, be able to then build up our reserve of Pardafelises. Now, I'm not putting it into 2 times just yet. This first round, I'm gonna take it fairly slowly here just to get things going. We place our Fu Hua immediately here, as well as keep on building up our reserves of Pardafelises. And we're just going to let this turn go slowly for a second here. We're just going to let it build up our Pardafelises whilst I still have time to react, and then we'll go up into hyperdrive. There we go, another unit spawns, place another Fu Hua. Keep on placing our Kleins as well, so we can then continuously get some units going. Or rather, money. And this is essentially gonna be where we place another Fu, just to get rid of this red unit. The red units are absolutely devastating. I don't like dealing with them, so we're essentially gonna cock block them as soon as we goddamn can. Keep on building up our Pardos. Money is very important. And then we just keep on waiting until we can get more of our Fu Huas going. Keep on going until we have 2 rows of essentially Pardafelises. We're not gonna go into a 2 times speed, because it's very vulnerable there. Now it's getting a bit clutch. Gonna put that there. Hopefully that's enough time for that guy to die. I don't want to use one of my Kevins just yet. Now I've neglected this area down bottom. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna freeze it. I'm gonna freeze everyone. And then we're gonna maybe put a bit of an Alicia down here and a Fu down there. This is just to get the damage going. Some of these units are pretty devastating, so we want to essentially postpone them as much as possible. Clear out this thing right here, so we can actually, well, deal with it. And now I've gotten into a bit of a situation. I've gotten a lot of things going, and this is where it gets a bit hectic, because, well, it just is. I don't really know how to explain it, but I've got a bit of overlapping in unit placement and whatnot. But just keep on building stuff. You do want to use your Sues and Kevins very, very accurately. you kind of just need to block stuff immediately. As soon as it becomes a problem, like, I've got a lot of stuff coming at me. Well, I can't use my Kevin. If I could, I would use my Kevin right now, essentially to block the enemies straight away. But I don't have that available to me, so we just keep on just playing rather slowly. Not going to use our Sue, or rather our Kevin here. We're going to build a bridge, hopefully right here, so I can place a Kevin. Now, when you kill these giant guys, they kind of, I think they leave down a toxin field. Quite, rude of them, which is not going to be a very helpful thing to me. There's the toxin field. But also, keep on using your Eponias when you can to get rid of these purple fields, because they are not helpful in any way. Now, a lot of my units are going to die here because of that poison garbage. It is what it is. What can you do about it? There go 2 of my foos. That's not helpful, rather. I was going to say that's not hoopful, but that's not helpful. And yeah, there it is. Boom. We have to get rid of that field. And we're going to place a Sue up there. And now we're going to turn it into 2 times, because I do believe we have the capacity to go 2 times. And you kind of want to try to get an Alicia on every row by the end. It's rather helpful to have that. Alicia's essentially will be able to solo a single floor. Now, I don't have a Alicia on the bottom row here, so we're going to get rid of our Sue here and replace it with a Alicia. Then we're going to place a Sue here. And now every row has a Sue. That's really helpful, having a Sue on every single row. Now, this middle row here is going to get absolutely shafted and blasted. We're going to replace the last Foo with an Alicia. A lot more damage there. And hopefully everything goes well. We've got a Ganesha at the top, which is not nice. Ganesha is very tanky. But so far, it's okay. We're going okay. We're just going to then, whilst we're waiting for this last guy to die, because he will drop his Toxin Field and it will pretty much kill a few of my units, we're going to continue to get rid of this Toxin stuff with our Eponias. Place some units back, and essentially now we're playing the waiting game. Use your Sues and Kevins accordingly. You can double down on Sue just to have a lot more tankiness. You can just slow down enemies whenever you feel like. I'll just chuck it down now. It's really that early game that is the tough part to do, and that's when you want to be using your Foos and Sues and Kevins very, very accurately to postpone the enemies exactly when you need it, and then to fill in the spaces with whatever unit you do need. You could very easily replace your Fuhua with another tank unit, something like a Calpus, just for essentially more damage and killing the enemies a lot faster, as well as the field damage that he places down after you've gotten a certain buff for him. But you could also just not do that and kind of use a Vilv, and that's like an RNG unit essentially. But you can see me now placing Alicia's essentially wherever the hell I want, because that's essentially what you do now. Alicia is a powerhouse of a unit. Once you've got your back line done, your foreline or your front line can be essentially whatever you want it to be. Get rid of this last Alicia here and place, or rather get rid of that last Foo and put Alicia down, and boom, the round is done. Now, that looked like a tough run, and it was, because it's not an overly easy event. It does have its difficulties. It definitely does have its difficulties, so you're not going to breeze through this, but it's definitely not as hard as some other things that I've experienced. And as you can see, we're just letting our Alicias take care of everything. We can slowly replace all of our Foos with Alicias if you do continue to struggle. Slowly integrate Alicia into every spot, and you'll essentially be able to breeze through the event. Like that, and there you go. 3 Alicias per row, nothing is going to live through that. It's very, very good, and bam, you're done. Now, some good alternate teams is literally using Vilv. Vilv is a 60 cost with a low cooldown, but the factor there is RNG. If you're very comfortable with the RNG factor, you can definitely use her to substitute your Foos and your Alicias, and then you can essentially use Vilv to be your only damage dealer, and then have all your supports there. You can definitely do that. It's really up to how you want to do it, but that is essentially the run that got me to Ultimate Challenge 40. Or that is the team comp that got me to Ultimate Challenge 40, is using mainly Alicia as well as Foo, and a combination of Kevin, Sue, and Calpus to support me and prolong the runs. Hopefully this has been helpful. If it has, like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next event or the next stream video, whatever it is. Catch you guys then. Peace out.